felt in present.
I've lost my money, I've lost my club, and now I've lost my guests.
We also use present perfect when we talk about our life experiences. I've been to the UK. I've studied in Germany. I've done this so many times before. When you talk about your experiences, about things you've done before, you use present perfect.
I've never driven before.
Also, if you have an unfinished time word, for example, this year, this week, today, and want to talk about actions that have happened in the period that is still ongoing, you use present perfect. Let me give you a couple of examples. We've already repaired our car twice this year. Oh my God, and there might be another repair coming up. You've already done so many things today. You've accomplished so much during this day, and you still have time to do something else. You've already slept for 5 hours today. Stop sleeping. Come on, time to work. So whenever we have this ongoing timestamp, we use present perfect.
Nah, I've already seen someone cry today.
Also, a quick difference between present perfect and past simple. If you say I worked here for 5 years, that means you're still working here. If you say I worked here for 5 years, that means you're no longer working here. You see the subtle difference in using of
Today, on September 18th, 2025, the nation of Malaysia finds itself at a critical juncture, grappling with a confluence of social, political, and legal developments. Social developments, political developments, legal developments, from the heart of Kuala Lumpur to the shores of Sabah. The day's headlines reveal deep-seated tensions and demand accountability from those in power. We'll delve into the volatile situation in Kampung Sungai Baru. We'll examine the escalating power crisis in Sabah, and we'll unpack a significant legal ruling tied to a high-profile disappearance. These stories, while distinct, paint a broader picture of a nation confronting its challenges head-on. The news cycle today is dominated by three major narratives about urban development, governmental responsibility, and the pursuit of justice. In the federal capital, a senior politician has issued a stark warning about external forces allegedly fueling conflict within a historic community. The warning comes amid violence and recrimination in the community. Simultaneously, on the other side of the South China Sea, a political party has leveled severe accusations against the Sabah state government. They hold it responsible for a debilitating infrastructure failure that has plunged the East Coast into darkness. The blackout has caused economic turmoil across the region. Further complicating the national landscape is a pivotal decision from the judiciary. The Court of Appeal has granted a former e-hailing driver the right to challenge his conviction. The case is linked to the mysterious disappearance of Pastor Raymond Koh. Together, these three stories form a compelling snapshot of Malaysia on this Thursday in September. The simmering tensions surrounding the redevelopment of Kampung Sungai Baru, a historic Malay enclave in the heart of Kuala Lumpur, have once again erupted into the national spotlight. The core of the issue lies in a long-standing redevelopment plan that has divided the community, pitting residents who accepted compensation offers against a smaller group of homeowners who refused to relocate. This division created fertile ground for conflict, which culminated in violence on the night of September 11, 2025. Reports described chaotic scenes as clashes broke out, resulting in injuries and property damage. The redevelopment promises modernization, new high-rise residences and commercial spaces. For years, developers backed by government authorities negotiated with landowners. A majority, over 90%, agreed, but a vocal minority held out. Citing inadequate compensation, the loss of cultural heritage, and destruction of their ancestral community, resistance caused a stalemate, frustrating developers and residents awaiting promised benefits. The September 11th violence marked a dangerous escalation. Eyewitness accounts and media reports detailed confrontations with accusations from all sides. Police intervention highlighted a breakdown of civil discourse and risk of further unrest. the community was left shaken and polarized. Planning dispute became a public safety crisis. Focus shifted from logistics to root causes. Questions now target the nature of the negotiations, adequacy of stakeholder communication, and outside influences on holdouts. Political leaders and city officials must confront the human cost of development, especially displacement of long-established communities. Kampong Sungai Baru's events remind us progress isn't just concrete and steel. It must account for the social fabric and heritage of the people it affects. They highlight the balance between development and heritage, the critical importance of reliable public services, and the unwavering demand for a fair and transparent legal system. As we navigate each event, from a member of parliament's heated words to the formal proceedings of a courtroom, this is a day where questions of leadership, responsibility, and justice are not just being asked, but are being fiercely debated in the public square. We'll explore the immediate impacts on individuals and wider implications for the nation. The spark of unrest has been lit. In a powerful and direct statement issued today, Tidawangsa MP Johari Ghani has placed the blame for the recent violence in Kampong Sungai Baru squarely on the shoulders of outsiders. Speaking as the constituency representative, Johari said external parties have been politicizing the redevelopment for their own gain. He argued these individuals and groups who have no direct stake in the community are manipulating the emotions of the few remaining residents who oppose the project. According to Johari, their interference turned a manageable local dispute into an intractable, violent confrontation and undermined years of patient negotiation. Johari drew a clear line between the legitimate concerns of his constituents and the disruptive actions of what he called agitators. He emphasized that the vast majority of the original landowners and the residents of Kampong Sungai Baru had already reached an amicable agreement with the developer. These residents are waiting to proceed with the redevelopment to receive their new homes and financial compensation. Johari framed the conflict not as residents versus developers, but as community desire for progress versus destructive external actors, exploiting the situation for political reasons or ideological reasons. The MP highlighted a critical distinction between holdout residents themselves and the external groups advising them. He suggested these outsiders could be lawyers, activists, political opportunists. They have been providing misleading information and encouraging a confrontational stance that harms the people they claim to help. By prolonging the dispute, he argued, agitators prevent most residents from moving on with their lives and benefiting from the new development. His message: external forces should cease involvement and let actual stakeholders resolve remaining issues. This accusation adds a new, charged dimension to public discourse. Johari's statement is not just a defense of the project, but an offensive against those hijacking the issue. It warns that authorities will not tolerate deliberate escalation of tensions by parties with no legitimate connection to the community. By framing the September 11th violence as a consequence of external meddling, he has shifted the narrative, urging the public and media to look beyond the holdouts and question the motives of those fanning the flames from the sidelines. This political strategy aims to delegitimize opposition by framing it as externally manipulated. The aftermath will determine the community's future. The aftermath of the September 11th violence and Johari Ghani's subsequent statement has left the Kampong Sungai Baru community in a state of tense anticipation. For the majority of residents who have already consented to the redevelopment, the situation is a source of immense frustration. They see the continued delays and public conflict as an unnecessary obstacle preventing them from realizing the benefits they were promised. Many of these families have been living in temporary accommodations or are eagerly awaiting the financial settlement that will allow them to secure their futures. Their primary desire is for a swift and peaceful resolution that honors the agreement they made in good faith, allowing the project to finally break ground. On the other side of the divide, the remaining holdout residents find themselves in an increasingly isolated and precarious position. Johari Ghani's pointed criticism of outsiders has put them and their advisors under intense scrutiny. While they maintain that their fight is a principled stand for fair compensation and the preservation of their heritage, they now face mounting pressure. The recent violence has also likely weakened their position as it associates their cause with public disorder. Their path forward is uncertain, caught between their resolve to fight for what they believe is just and the growing momentum to finalize the redevelopment. The government and the developers are now faced with the delicate task of navigating this complex social landscape to bring the project to completion. Johari Ghani's statement signals a more assertive approach aiming to delegitimize the opposition by framing it as externally manipulated. This strategy may involve legal actions to finalize the land acquisition process under the Land Acquisition Act, a move that would compulsorily acquire the remaining properties. However, such a move, while legally permissible, could be perceived as heavy-handed and might provoke further public sympathy for the holdout residents. The challenge is to enforce the will of the majority without creating martyrs. Ultimately, the future of Kampung Sungai Baru hinges on whether a final, peaceful resolution can be found. The ideal path would involve one last attempt at mediation, perhaps with a neutral third party, to address the specific grievances of the remaining homeowners. However, given the heightened tensions and the hardened positions on all sides, the possibility of a forced resolution seems increasingly likely. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining whether this decades-old community will end its story in quiet compromise or in the shadow of conflict, setting a precedent for future urban redevelopment projects across Malaysia. Across the sea in East Malaysia, the state of Sabah is grappling with a crisis of a different nature, but one no less critical to the well-being of its people. The state's east coast, encompassing major towns like Sandakan, Lahad Datu, Tawau, has been plunged into a severe power supply crisis. These power outages are not minor inconveniences. They are debilitating events that have crippled daily life and brought economic activity to a grinding halt. Residents have had to endure sweltering heat without air conditioning or fans. Businesses have suffered significant losses due to their inability to operate. And essential services, including healthcare facilities, have been put under immense strain. The root of the problem lies in Sabah's aging and inadequate power generation and distribution infrastructure. For years, experts and local leaders have warned that the state's electricity grid is unable to keep up with growing demand, particularly in the rapidly developing East Coast region. The system is plagued by a lack of generation capacity, and the transmission lines that carry power from generation plants to consumers are old and unreliable, making them prone to breakdowns that trigger widespread outages. This systemic failure has created a perfect storm, leaving the East Coast vulnerable to the exact crisis it is now experiencing. The human impact of this power crisis cannot be overstated. Small business owners, coffee shop operators, workshop mechanics have seen their revenues plummet as they are forced to close for hours or even days at a time. Families are struggling to preserve food as refrigerators fail, and students find it difficult to study at night. The frustration and anger among the populace are palpable, with many taking to social media and local forums to voice their discontent. The constant uncertainty of when the next blackout will occur has created a pervasive sense of anxiety and has severely eroded public confidence. This ongoing crisis has exposed the urgent need for massive investment in Sabah's energy sector. It is a stark reminder that economic development and the quality of life for citizens are fundamentally dependent on reliable infrastructure. The recurring blackouts are more than just a technical problem. They are a significant obstacle to Sabah's progress, deterring investment and hindering its potential for growth. The people of the East Coast are not just asking for lights. They are demanding a stable foundation upon which they can build their lives, businesses, and futures. A demand that is growing louder with each passing day of darkness. The crisis has not gone unnoticed by the political opposition, leading to sharp criticism of the state government. Demands for accountability are mounting. In response to the deepening power crisis, the Sabah chapter of the Malaysian Chinese Association, or MCA, has launched a scathing critique of the state government. Today, Sabah MCA issued a strong statement, accusing the current administration of gross negligence and a total failure to prevent predictable, devastating power outages in Sandakan, Tawau, and surrounding areas. The party's leadership said the government had been repeatedly warned about the fragility of the state's power infrastructure, but failed to take decisive and timely action. This inaction, the MCA says, is the direct cause of suffering and economic disruption. Sabah MCA's statement went beyond mere criticism, framing the crisis as a fundamental breach of the government's responsibility to citizens. Ensuring a stable supply of essential utilities like electricity is one of the most basic duties of any government. By failing to do so, the state government has jeopardized public safety and stalled economic progress. The MCA pointed out the irony of a resource-rich state like Sabah being unable to provide consistent power, suggesting the problem is not a lack of resources, but a lack of political will, a lack of competent planning, and ineffective management from the top. The political party demanded immediate and transparent action from the state government. Their call was not for a quick fix, but for a comprehensive long-term strategy to overhaul Sabah's entire energy infrastructure, increase power generation capacity, upgrade the antiquated transmission grid, explore renewable energy sources. They demanded a clear timeline and accountability. The people deserve to know how and when this will be fixed. This strong condemnation has amplified political pressure on the ruling Gabungan Rakyat Sabah government. It transforms the infrastructure problem into a potent political issue, giving a voice to widespread public discontent. By positioning itself as a champion for affected citizens, the MCA is challenging the government's narrative ahead of future elections. The crisis is no longer just a technical issue for engineers at Sabah Electricity SDNB Aid. It has become a defining test of the state government's leadership, and its response, or lack of one, will have political ramifications. Meanwhile, in the courts, another significant development unfolds. A significant development has emerged today from Malaysia's judicial system, breathing new life into a long unsolved case. The Court of Appeal in Putrajaya has unanimously granted leave to Lam Cheng Nam, a former e-hailing driver, to appeal his conviction and his sentence for extorting the son of Pastor Raymond Koh. Lam was found guilty of demanding 30,000 ringgit from Jonathan Koh, claiming he could provide information on Pastor Koh's whereabouts. Pastor Koh was abducted in broad daylight in Petaling Jaya in February 2017 and remains missing. The original case was grim and emotional. The High Court convicted Lam, finding he exploited the family's desperation by claiming he could secure the pastor's release. Many saw the conviction as only a small measure of justice. Lam was sentenced to imprisonment and fined, a verdict seen as closing one painful chapter. The extortion of a grieving family was widely condemned. Lam's lawyers maintain his innocence, alleging significant legal and factual errors in the High Court judgment. The appeal argues the conviction was unsafe and that prosecution evidence fell short of the required threshold. They are challenging evidence interpretation and legal principles used. Securing leave to appeal is a critical first step. It does not declare innocence, but signals the higher court believes the appeal has merit. Pastor Raymond Koh's disappearance remains deeply sensitive and unresolved. A 2019 SUACOM inquiry concluded he was a victim of an enforced disappearance, allegedly carried out by state agents, specifically the Special Branch. This context makes the legal proceedings highly significant. Lam's appeal reignites public debate about Koh's fate and the ongoing lack of accountability for the abduction. The court's decision ensures the case will be re-examined in the halls of justice. The decision to grant Lam Cheng Nam leave to appeal was delivered this morning by a three-member bench of the Court of Appeal, led by Justice Wazir Alam Maidin Mira, Justice Ahmad Zaidi Ibrahim, Justice Azmi Arifin. After hearing submissions from Lam's defense counsel and the prosecution, the panel concluded unanimously that the application raised pertinent questions of law and fact. Justice Wazir Alam said the petition showed arguable issues that merited appellate review, meeting the legal threshold for leave. This is a significant victory for Lam's defense. It sets aside the High Court's finality for now and opens the door to a full re-examination. At the appeal hearing, Lam's lawyers will present full arguments, dissect the original trial evidence, challenge witness credibility. The prosecution will defend the conviction and argue it should be upheld. The legal basis is that those convicted of serious crimes must be allowed to challenge verdicts. The Court of Appeal is a crucial check on lower courts. The panel could uphold the conviction, overturn it and acquit Lam, or order a retrial. The events of September 18, 2025 have provided a stark and revealing look into the complex challenges facing Malaysia today. From the heated disputes over urban land in Kuala Lumpur, to the critical infrastructure failures in Sabah, to the intricate workings of the justice system in Putrajaya. These stories underscore a nation in a state of constant motion. They reveal the tensions that arise from growth, the accountability demanded of leaders, and the persistent human desire for fairness and resolution. Each narrative contributes to the ongoing story of Malaysia's development, highlighting progress and the significant hurdles that remain. Titi Wangsa MP Johari Gani's strong words on Kampung Sungai Baru spotlight the balance between community heritage and urban modernization. In Sabah, the power crisis and the MCA's pointed accusations remind us of the need for competent governance and reliable infrastructure. The Court of Appeal's decision in the case linked to Pastor Raymond Koh reaffirms the judiciary's role as a guardian of justice, even when the path is long and painful. As these situations develop, staying informed is more crucial than ever. The outcomes will have lasting implications beyond individuals, public policy, political discourse, and the nation's social fabric. They will set precedents for how Malaysia handles future land disputes, addresses regional inequality and infrastructure deficits, and pursues justice for its most vulnerable citizens. Today's headlines are tomorrow's history lessons. Understanding them is key to knowing Malaysia's direction. Thank you for reading this recap of today's significant news from Malaysia. We're committed to clear, in-depth coverage of the stories that matter. We'll continue to follow developments and bring further updates as they unfold. In a world of fast-moving events, our goal is to offer the context and analysis you need. Please stay tuned for future reports tracking stories across the region and the globe. This has been Mike, bringing you today's breaking news from Malaysia. From community disputes to infrastructure failures to judicial proceedings, these stories remind us that democracy requires active participation and informed citizens. Malaysia's journey toward progress is complex, but it is through understanding these challenges that we can work toward solutions. Thanks for listening. We will meet again next time. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember that every voice matters in shaping our nation's future.